want to first of all thank our volunteers and sound people and everybody who's helped bring the Sunday morning sitting group to some kind of orderly meeting, and really appreciate that. And I want to also, I've been introducing Akemi to you, but to those of you who haven't met her, maybe you would stand up just for a moment. Akemi is our new volunteer coordinator. It's a real job now at InsightLA. She's on our team. And so if you have any talents that you would like to volunteer or any, information about volunteering, please ask Akemi. She's really nice, so you don't have to be afraid of asking her. Thank you. Jack and I just came back late last night from the second memorial for Ram Dass. There's one in Santa Cruz coming up. There's one in Taos in the summer. There's one, it's really, his passing has really moved a lot of people. And for those of you who may not know who Ram Dass is, he was really a pioneer in this whole field of exploring our consciousness, and went from being a psychology professor at Harvard to experimenting with LSD, which led to his being fired from Harvard, actually. And then he went to India and met his guru, and he wrote a book called Be Here Now, which I guess it just really changed our generation, that book. It really opened the door to a lot of the meditation practices and spiritual life and practice that we didn't have before. We just didn't. We weren't doing that. And I can say even, gatherings like this, we can really trace back partly to Ram Dass's influence and pioneering dedication to his spiritual life. So on the way home last night, I was reading a book on the plane that I had read before, maybe just being in an airplane, in that sort of tin can. It was fine, smooth flight, no problem. Unlike a flight we took to get to Maui, where Ram Dass has lived for 15 years, which was so completely terrifying in this tiny little it wasn't that tiny, 8 people in a little plane, and flying through this, just hit a storm. And the turbulence is always scary, even if you're not afraid of flying. It's just a lot to bear when you're in a teeny weeny plane, especially. It feels like you might fall apart, but it didn't. And the moment that was really challenging, I think, we're all telling ourselves, it's just turbulence, it's a storm. They fly through these all the time. Meanwhile, lights are flashing and the plane is shaking, and then these alarms went off. Yeah, that was really terrible. We began, I don't know what Jack was thinking. I was thinking, wow, Ram Dass, really? I guess we're going to see you sooner rather than later. Then I had this other thought, which was, well, at least there'll be a lot of people gathered to mourn our passing. Yes, those were not the only thoughts. There were some more spiritual ones as well, but it's very interesting to see what goes through your mind at a moment like that. And so maybe it was just being in the airplane, but I was reading this book by Thich Nhat Hanh called Be Free Where You Are. And it's a book that it's gathered from some talks that he gave in prison. So he's talking to incarcerated people and people who are experiencing literal imprisonment, not just whatever figurative imprisonment we have in our own minds and perceptions, but really people experiencing incarceration in our jails, prisons. And what I really loved about the book is that his teaching, he was really undaunted by their life circumstances. And saying things that were very respectful, like understanding there are things you have to do that you don't want to do, that you have to do here every single day, but really emphasizing it's the same sky, it's the same air, it's the same water, it's the same, it's, there is this living, this is my word, not his, but it comes to me this morning, this sort of living tissue of life, of aliveness that is shared as long as we're alive together. And a lot of the teaching is about making a relationship with the actual concrete circumstances, like the floor you're walking on, the door you walk through, the sounds you hear, because it's a noisy environment, the movement of the breath in the body, and the ability to feel one's steps when one is taking steps, and the ability to, see sights, hear sounds. And what he was pointing to over and over, without again using these particular words, was the sensuousness of mindfulness practice, the sensuousness of being present, to really open our senses and feel the texture of a breath, breathing in, breathing out, the texture of your breath right this minute. And to really immerse oneself in the actual felt experience of a moment, whether it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And you've all discovered this in your meditation. We make this agreement that we're going to sit still and be quiet while we're meditating here, and we do that together. And we don't monitor, we can't fortunately monitor what's going on in everybody's minds, but we're behaving. We're sitting quietly, we're not moving for the most part, And we've all discovered, like, I felt my knee got really uncomfortable toward the end, and I was so just tempted to move my position, and of course I could, and I did a little bit, but I also knew that if I can stay with that sensation and stay with the experience of what is it exactly, is it achy, is it tight, is it burning, is it, just to stay with exactly what is the nature of this sensation, and how is it landing, what is the nature of this body mind reaction to what's happening, just to that uncomfortableness. And in exploring that, the uncomfortableness changes, and it's not so unbearably uncomfortable. Sometimes it vanishes altogether, sometimes it gets stronger and it actually is more uncomfortable. But being patient and willing to feel, oh, this is the landscape of my life right in this moment. Just like the flashing lights and the alarms going off and the plane shaking, that was the landscape of our life in that moment. I'd like to say that I sat there imperturbable. And that wasn't true. I just was really trying to radiate as much love as I could to everyone and everything I love. And in that moment, you love everything. Let me tell you. You don't really love the storm that much. But it's, again, the practice that I was appreciating in reading his book was the being free where you are part. That really, we use so many rationalizations about why we're not just practicing being simply present and appreciating what's here. Ram Dass uses the phrase loving awareness, and his meditation that we've taught here is just to identify with that. I am loving awareness. I am loving awareness. And just using it like a mantra, and then dropping the I am, just loving awareness. And I like it too because it's a play on words. It's suffusing awareness with some tenderness and love, but it's also loving being present, loving being awake, loving being aware. But this morning I was thinking of it as appreciation too, just appreciating the life of the body, appreciating that you don't have to run your own liver or kidneys. Seriously, if we did, it would be a full-time job and we still couldn't get it right. Releasing those enzymes at exactly the right time. What if we forgot? No, seriously, it would be terrible. So we'd get sick. We might even die. If I had to be in charge of my own heartbeat, I would forget and die. So just appreciating the harmonious activity of this body, even problems that you may have with your body, and many of us do at this point, even that, the fact that we're here, that we could get here, that we're able to meditate together and listen to teachings and share, and we're alive, and there's more. What is it my friend John Kabat-Zinn always says? There's more, as long as you're breathing, there's more right with you than wrong with you. And I feel that. I remember when I first started practicing meditation, it was in the context of Zen Buddhism, and I remember feeling the relief, the liberation of being able to appreciate the simple fact of this body being alive and taking care of everything that I don't need to take care of. It's just happening. It was, I don't know, I was a single mom at the time. I guess I worked. I was a working mom. It was a relief to realize there's a lot that I don't have to be in charge of. And I think it's a relief for you. It's a relief for all of us to just sit quietly and appreciate this, whatever this is. And when this doesn't feel like something you can appreciate, just imagine yourself on that little plane, thinking that you're about to die. We can play all kind of tricks to help ourselves stay present and appreciate what's here, just what's here. And I need to give Jack a chance to speak. I know. We had a conversation on the way over here, and I was saying sometimes I don't feel like sharing. That's fine. I can. You won't be here next week. I mean, I can say the rest next week. Is what I meant.
All right.
It's worth it. Being generous, I mean.
To pick up on some of the qualities you've been describing, Trudy, mindfulness or mindful loving awareness allows us to appreciate the experiences we have or appreciate the life we have. What you're looking for?
I just want to make sure you had some water.
Oh, I do, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate your appreciation.
And it's interesting. Let me see if I can figure out how to say this, because there are two related dimensions to becoming present. One is the ability to really be present for experience, to be present for that person in front of you as if you've never seen them before, with a beginner's mind, or that tree in your yard, or the light in the morning, and not to take it for granted and be lost in your head, but actually be alive here, which is part of what Thich Nhat Hanh was teaching in attention to the same sky and the same breath and the floor and the door. At the same time, mindful loving awareness allows us to step back and have a kind of dispassion, if you will, or a detached perspective, a shift of identity from the small sense of self where we get all engaged in who we are and how it's supposed to be and how we're right or wrong and how other people have treated us right or wrong and all of those, what's called the body of fear, the separateness that we have, and step back and say, to appreciate this human incarnation that we have and the particular curriculum you've been given, to use a Ram Dass phrase, because in this incarnation you will have gain and loss, you'll have success and failure, you have, creative things at work and business that's great, and you'll have family tragedies, and they're not actually yours, they're human. Everybody who's going through a divorce or through a creative success or a business growing or a loss, on that very day there are 142,737,000 other people going through the same thing. And it's not yours. It's not so personal. It's part of being a human being. And this capacity to become the loving witness of your life when you go through the difficult things or when you go through the most joyful and successful ones is a shift of identity from taking it all so personally. I'm a failure, I'm great, You know what it's like when you take things personally. It's just I do. Somebody gets upset with me and they use a particular tone of voice and they're judgmental. And I get all upset and I take it very personally when it may actually have nothing to do with me. It's the morning, whatever happened for them. When we take things personally, we get really caught in them. But if we can see, oh, this is just judging. This is just a difficulty. This is pain. This is loneliness. There's nothing I did wrong. It's part of being human that you're lonely. It's also part of being human that you're connected. When you sit in meditation, then you both become more present for the stream of life, and the loving awareness allows you to feel all these experiences, to notice the thoughts, the sensations of the body, the emotions that come, but somehow be bigger than them, which is actually what you are. You are the awareness, and all this is happening in awareness. This is who you are. You, as Trudy was saying, you're the loving awareness. And if you can, you sit and practice, and you let things unfold. And you can make choices then in the sitting, whether to move or not, or in your life as the mind gets quiet and the heart opens and you get more present. Then you have a landscape. All right, I've met this difficulty. Do I have to stand up and with courage and say no to it? Do I let it pass? Do I speak about it? Do I try to change it? Do I realize this is one that I can just let go? You can make a wise response because you're present and you're not so attached. It's really talking about attachment. So if you can let things come and go more easily, your life becomes easier and the heart and mind become freer and freer to love. You get to love all of it. You get to love the difficulties because that's where the heart really grows wiser and greater in compassion, is when you go through difficulties, generally speaking. But then it's not just that things come and go, but they have this unfortunate, it seems, quality of repeating themselves. All right, so you got through it, or you had this problem, thank you, or this difficulty. I'm insanely allergic this morning, so I can't really breathe very well. So you have to, it's just being allergic and not breathing. But the other part's working fine. I can breathe other ways. So this is the interesting part in meditation. So you sit and you become the loving awareness. You become the witness of it. This morning the meditation's quiet, or it's restless, or there's worry, or there's love, or there's longing, or there's a creativity attack, and you choreograph a whole theater piece, an opera. And you just notice that, and you become the peaceful vastness, the spaciousness of awareness that says, oh, that's what's unfolding, and you get quieter and more flexible and wiser. But then, sometimes things are stuck. And they're stuck because they keep repeating, he did that and she did it, and I should and I shouldn't have. Or there's some emotion, there's grief for some loss or some unrequited love or longing, or there's something really stuck in the body and it keeps coming back. When it keeps returning, it's a signal that says something is looking for a deeper acceptance, a deeper attention. It keeps coming back like that dog that keeps coming back because it wants to get fed or whatever. It comes back because it needs something from you, which is a deeper attention. And then what you want to do, even if it's a repeated thought, is to connect the body and mind and say, all right, this is a thought of worry or fear or anxiety, or this is a thought about regret, or shame or grief that you carry. To get quiet, notice the thought so you can name it. Oh, there's thinking, there's regret, sadness, whatever it is. Where do I feel this in the body? And connect that experience of the mind, the emotions, and the body together. Oh, that regret I feel in the heart. Oh, that frustration I feel right in the solar plexus. Oh, that fear I feel it is like in my hands, things get cold. Where do you feel it? Next step, after you notice it carefully, is what happens if you bring compassion to it? Not trying to get it to go away or fix it or anything. Just hold that physical pain, that emotion, that longing, that love, that fear. With compassion, what does it do? You get curious. Generally speaking, as you do that, it starts to ease. Then the next thing you can do is say, all right, let it open. So there you are, and you're anxious. And you notice it, and you name it gently. Anxious, anxious, using the tool of naming. Anxious, anxious. And it starts to get stronger. It's stronger. Now it's fear, fear, fear. Whoa, it's getting worse. Terror, terror. Oh, I hate this. No longer terror. Now it's hating, hating. Okay, so you notice that, hating, hating. And you allow it to go, all right, let's see how big you get. Fear gets huge. It fills the body in the room. Fear, fear. You just give it space to open. Terror, hating, hating. Then you notice, hating, hating. I wonder where I should go for lunch. Because the mind has no pride at all. And because you're no longer resisting it, it opens up, and then you realize, oh, it's dissipating a little, it's got space. Or the grief is there, and you know, grief, I'm so much loss, I feel so sorry for myself. Sad, sad. And you notice that. And then you notice the sadness turns into a kind of tenderness. You let that open, and then there's a vulnerability. Ooh, can I feel this vulnerable? And you make space for it all. And as you do, you become more and more the witness to the experience, to say, yes, this is what this human incarnation brings, and begin to trust that you can hold it all in a heart of compassion and love. Does this make sense to you? So you're really learning the art of letting life unfold with an open heart and as the witness, as the loving awareness. And as you learn to do it in the meditation, then, as you sit quietly, then you have that same capacity when somebody cuts you off on the highway, right? Or when some difficulty comes. It won't come right away when the plane is shaking and, we're in the middle of the storm, the lightning is flashing and so forth, and the beep, beep, the alarm goes off. It didn't say, like, pull up, pull up. That's when you really have to worry. Yeah, but we would have taken a dive, I guess, they call it. So it's not like, you're always chill about it or something. But there's some part of you that goes, oh, yeah, this is what's happening. And you'll see when you die, because you'll float out of your body. There'll be light. There'll be like, and then there'll be this, wow, that was an insane incarnation. That was amazing, wasn't it? And you kind of reflect back on it. It's that kind of perspective where you live through joy and sorrow and gain and loss and pleasure and pain and fame and all those things and disrepute, and that's being human. And it makes the heart tender, and you go, wow, this is really an amazing thing to be alive on this day, in this life with all of us. So,
Thank you.
how was that? Did that fit with what you were teaching?
Yes. Thank you. So actually now it's your turn to speak, and Kenny and Eva will pass the mic. And so if you have a question about your practice or something that you'd like to share, how you're working with the principles of the practice in your life, just raise your hand. Okay.
Hi, thank
Hi.
you.
And maybe say your name at the beginning, because I can't see always the name tags that you're wearing.
Good morning, I'm Rita. Can you talk about meditating when you're really tired?
Meditating when you're really tired?
Tired. I
Sure.
there are some mornings where I'm so tired and I really just struggle with it.
Sure.
And is there any tips of the trade?
Well, there's some different things you can do to combat the fatigue. In the text, it says to pull on your earlobes. In the ancient text, I have never found that very helpful. But that is something you could try. Maybe some acupuncture point or something in there that wakes you up. And the other thing you could do is just have your cup of tea or coffee before you meditate, if that's something that would be helpful to you. Maybe, I don't know, but just very practical things. If you can do inversions, like going upside down, that really helps. Just bringing some blood into the brain. And so maybe just doing some stretches, a few little stretches before you sit that would involve being upside down in some way. It doesn't have to be like, a handstand or headstand. You can just be in like a relaxed version of down dog and we have some yoga people. You could show her some inversions to try. And the best thing usually is to stand up and meditate standing up, because you're much less likely to fall asleep when you're standing up, for the obvious reason. In the text, it's also recommended that you sit at the edge of a cliff. And
Don't stand anymore.
And that can also help you stay awake. You can pretend that, especially if you have a vivid imagination, you can imagine that, you can use your imagination. You can imagine that this is the last breath you'll ever breathe, and how much attention would you bring to it, and how much appreciation would there be if you really knew, or the last meditation you'd ever have the chance to do in this life, because you don't know, actually. It might be. And so there's lots of... Then the other way is to, more what Jack was pointing to, just to accept the tiredness. This is what tiredness feels like. This is what it's like to be a tired human being, getting up a little earlier to meditate when all you want is to sleep more, or to really just feel what that's like, because then what you're doing is bringing some interest and awareness to it. And the bringing interest and awareness brings energy. It just does. And so you might discover that that which you're focusing on, the sleepiness, gets stronger, and you fall asleep. Then fall asleep fully, be completely asleep. And if you can do that while you're sitting up, that's not bad, actually. That's one of the powers that we develop over many, many years of meditation. Not only do we wake up more in this life, we learn to be able to sleep in a cross-legged position sitting up in front of a lot of people. It's been known to happen. The worst thing is it used to happen to me when I would be up on the stage at a big retreat and Jack would be giving a dharma talk. Like the most time I would want to appear alert and fascinated. But his voice, you may have noticed, it's really soothing voice. And at the end of a day of work, it can soothe you. In fact, when we go places, often women come up to Jack and you can tell they really have just thought of this, saying this, and they say, I sleep with you at night. Yeah, they say that. Or sometimes, I sleep with you every night. Or, because, listening to, just clarifying. Yeah, thank you.
You also could walk.
Yeah, you can do walking instead.
Hi, I'm Michael. I have a question about grieving. Two situations recently. One, I had a close friend that passed away, and then also the other one is my wife, Stephanie, had her first major MS relapse since she was diagnosed 8 years ago, and in a lot of pain, and loss of mobility as well. And we're struggling. Well, I'm struggling going through the grief curve. I don't know when I'll cry about it. I haven't yet, and I've been through a little bit of anger, but not as much as I used to go through before.
But you are sad, right?
I'm sad,
Yeah.
and I don't know how to process it. And listening to Jack about it making it not being so personal, but if I would love some more guidance on how exactly to do that.
Do you want to answer
So,
that?
Michael, if you're willing, close your eyes for a moment, still holding the microphone, and just tell me where is the center of this grief in your body, if it had a place.
It's right here, right in my chest.
So right in your chest. And as you feel it, is it warm or cool in there?
It feels hard.
Hard. If it had a temperature, would it have a
Feels cool.
cool and hard? If it had a color, what color would it be?
Kind of a light blue.
So feel the cool, hard, light blue quality, and then feel also what emotion is with it. Is it sadness or pain, or what do you notice with it?
Sadness and regret.
Yeah, so feel that, and I notice even as you say it, stay with it, that your eyes contract and you're just on the verge of tears, and just let it be. You don't have to let anything change from that. And now gently say sad, sad, regret, and bring a tenderness to it. It just wants to be held. It just wants to be held with kindness because it's really sad. And let the tears weep and the sadness like a stream open, all held in a loving awareness. This is part of what it is to be human. And it's tender and it's hard. And as you stay with it, maybe put one hand on your heart or wherever that place is, and almost as if to let yourself know that you will continue to feel and listen to this place, and let what's there be received with this kind of tenderness and loving attention. Let the tears come so that it knows, because it's a process that you said so beautifully, you know that you're in.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for helping me cry.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And your tears touch the heart of everybody in this room. So they become also a gift to all of us to hold you, your wife, all that you lost, and all that we have to hold. So you become a gift. So thank you.
Hello, Ilana. Thank you both for your talk. I'm super grateful to be here today. I'm curious about, like, throughout my practice, through my meditation practice, I feel like there's certain neuroses that, like, have been a common theme throughout my life that, you know, even through, like, loving awareness and kindness and tenderness don't seem to be dissipating. And, like, some days it's easier. Some days, like, holding awareness for those not so useful practices or unhealthy thought patterns. Like, I'm just curious, like, do you feel like there's certain things in your life, no matter what you put into it, it's just sort of, this is what you're dealing with in your life, and it's sort of just going to carry through, and this is your karma, or this is what you're supposed to be working through, and so being less attached to it going away. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? Okay. I don't
You're
know
making total sense.
like, do you feel like that is or the acceptance that, like, I don't need to, like, know when this is going to go away? Like, I've been on and off meditating since I was 14. Like, I feel like there's certain things that are still, like, and I do all this work, right? Like, I do my yoga practice, I do my meditation, I do other sorts of things that I feel like are supposed to facilitate supposed to letting go, you know, like letting this go, or like not being attached, or being loving towards myself. Yet there's still this, like, this attachment to the, I don't know how to articulate it. Just, I feel like there's a charge around things that I can't let go of the charge around. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
what would happen, or what happens? Well, a few things, but I just want to start with this. Just what happens if you go into what that charge feels like? Because usually it's like what Jack was saying. Like, usually we're mindful of this and we're mindful of that, and I can feel, oh God, this again. I can feel the stuckness that I feel. I can feel the wish to let it go. I can feel the judgment about my not letting it go. I'm just being you for a minute, pretending. And then I can also feel all the charge around it. And now that I feel all the charge around it, I don't know what to do with that. And so now I'm going to take off into thinking about how long this has lasted and how hard I work and how it's still here. Do you see what I'm saying? So we're mindful, and then we identify with something. Like, we reach a limit of our capacity to hold it in awareness and instead get really caught in it. So that is one thing, to just feel what is it? What is the charge? And what happens when you go into that? I don't know if you want to do that right this minute. Knowing you, I'm guessing not. Yes. But that's a practice to do, like to see where it's stopping, and then what happens if you explore the feeling of there's a charge around it, the aversion to that feeling, what that feeling actually is. So that's, I can tell from the tears, that's something. Yeah. And then the only other thing I would say is there's often that feeling after years of doing spiritual practices and psychological practices, like how can I still be encountering the whatever this is? How can that? Everybody's nodding behind you. You can't see them, but they're all going like that. And but the reality is that's your stuff. You're not going to be working with Clark's or with Marianne's or, Michael's. It's always going to be yours. And that might be bad news, but it's just the way it is. It's the same with mine.
You've had like a thing that was like a carried theme, and then
Yes.
then at some point
Yes.
it's
Yes.
No.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it doesn't mean that at some point it's like 100% free, but it's so much better that it's not even noticeable. Do you see what I mean? It's not or when it comes up, the response to it is so different that it doesn't matter so much. So, yes, there's hope. Yes, freedom. You can be free where you are. You really can. And just see what happens in that area that we just, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hi.
Rebecca.
Yeah.
I have been watching the habits of my mind in the last probably year because I'm a little more boxed in life. Like everything is so regimented and scheduled to a T. There's like not a lot of room for spontaneity. And I love spontaneity, and I really ascribe myself to being like an enthusiast. And lately I just keep finding myself in like negative habit patterns in my mind, and I'm like, it's a bummer in there. It's like I just keep watching myself go to the negative, and I feel like I'm in a rut with that. And so I think what I'm asking is, how do we work with ourselves when I'm finding myself in a rut, and when I'm just watching it, like I'm aware of it and I'm just watching the pattern repeat, and I'm frustrated with myself.
Right, because awareness and watching a pattern repeat doesn't necessarily change it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I really want to change
Yeah.
it.
We're taking turns.
Cool.
So first a little principle and then a little practice. We think over the long term that through our meditation, our practice, we can get better and heal ourselves and in some way make ourselves more perfect. You know how that goes, right? But the idea in some way is not as much to perfect yourself as to perfect your love. So that's the frame for it. All right? So then if you were to ask, where do I feel this repeated negativity? If it had a center in your body, where would it be?
It's at the top of my head.
Okay, keep the mic up close to your mouth, the top of your head. What's it feel like there? Tight, hard, soft?
Tight and hard.
Hard and tight, warm, cool?
Hot.
Hot,
And
hard,
rigid.
tight, vibrating still? What's the...
Rigid. Constricted.
Okay, so now bring a compassion to it. Instead of trying to get rid of it, you could name it tightness, rigid, and just hold it kindly. And see what happens as you let it be that way or let it intensify or open. Just kindness to it. Rigid, tight, tight, and let it get stronger. Let it give it space to open even more, get more intense. But very kindly, you're just holding it with a kind of love. Notice what it does.
I feel my attention rest to like a more open space in my heart.
So it shifts, your attention shifts to your heart, which is more open. And what's up there as you let it have space to open with kindness?
Well,
Did
when
it-
I tune into my heart, then I just feel like an expansiveness.
So
in
it
my head.
opens, there's an expansiveness there. So just notice this. You don't have to do anything. But simply the act, instead of resisting or trying to get rid of it, of holding this with compassion, which is part of your life, with kindness, and giving it space to open, now has left the heart softer and the spaciousness of the head. And this is a place that you can get to know and live from. It's not getting rid of the other, but it's this shift of being the space of loving awareness itself. How does it feel?
It feels more relaxed
Yeah.
and peaceful.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
So this is really the end of our time together, and were you waiting? Yeah, we'll continue to be continued next week. I want to thank all of you for your patience with our 2 sitting group Sunday morning process. If any of you know of a venue where we could have more space and parking, that's the issue. We found spaces, but space and parking, please let us know. But in the meantime, thank you for your registering and your patience with all of it. And I just want to remind you that Sharon Salzberg is coming for her annual visit, and it's very special this year because she was sick last year, and she's here, and so we're going to have, I guess, a day long with her next weekend, and encourage you to come. She's one of the people who, along with Jack and Joseph, really brought mindfulness to this country in a big way many years ago. And I also want to thank our live stream friends for joining us. Always happy that you're here. And I am assuming there were no questions or anything from. Oh, this is the YouTube. Oh, okay. Thank you for watching the YouTube. Thank you for reminding me. But I will. Sharon is sold out. Are we going to live stream it? That's a whole nother question. So everybody, thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. And thank you for your support. For those of you who are monthly donors, we deeply appreciate that particular form of support. Those of you who volunteer. And those of you who kindly empty your wallets into the alms bowl in the lobby. And anything you give, seriously, anything you give is deeply appreciated and goes to support this that we're doing together, these teachings and these meetings and this rent and all of it. So thank you, everybody, and look forward to seeing you next week.